It's my birthday today, so I get to say whatever I want. But I'm still on the same rant from yesterday, although I'll approach it a bit differently, and a longer video, I suspect. When I was a young man, well, late teens in Australia, I used to go into Sydney City for work. And it was normal for certainly for nearly every male, when you were walking down the steps to the stations, there was a newsstand and everyone would buy a newspaper. Originally they were sixpence, and when we converted to decimal currency they became 10 cents. But you'd read your newspaper on the train, and I learnt so much in those years, I really did. The lack of truth existed then as it does now, probably to the same degree, although now I think there's far more stupidity involved and emotional immaturity. But anyway, a broadsheet newspaper was pretty big. It was about 18 inches wide, probably 2 foot high. The main story would be on the front. The Mirror used to have a bikini girl on the second page. That was a popular paper. And we'd read and talk about news stories with our travelling buddies as we went into the city or wherever we were going. But the way newspapers like Rupert M. with News Limited operated, they had what they called, they had reporters in the field, of course, and people they sent out to do stories. But with the newspaper, you have to fill it up. And there's two ways you can fill a newspaper up. You can fill it up. You start with the truth, but that will never fill it. So then you sell advertising, and you use advertising to fill spaces. And as you're laying the newspaper out, the blockers or inserters, they were also writers to some degree, and they'd elaborate on the story to make it longer or make it shorter. But they would change the basic concept of the story, so it sat into the area that was allotted to it. In order to get a complete and functioning newspaper, it had to look uniform on every page. So automatically, the truth is out the window, because it's absolutely impossible to put probably 20,000 items into 20 pages and have them all fit accurately. So things had to be modified, and they were. And time again, they were shown to be dishonest. I mean, you went there to look at the bikini girl on page 2, to be honest. I mean, because you weren't going to get the truth from reporters. And I had a personal incident during my arrest when I was probably about 38, I suppose, where 5 armed detectives surrounded me, all pointing guns at me. And I had the worst hangover of my life. I wouldn't have cared if they'd have shot me dead. But I read the report the next day of my arrest, and it bore no resemblance to what happened. And that was probably my first real inkling to how untruthful the media was. I mean, it was only probably 3% close to reality. And obviously editors had the opportunity to look at articles before they were submitted to see if the person looked like they had the ability to sue, and he'd give the go-ahead based on a yay or nay on that. And I have always been a ghost. If you look at my book, The Bagman of the Brothel, that I authored, put John Edward Kruger into Google, I occupy pages and pages of Google. But if you look for John Edward Kruger without the Bagman of the Brothel, I don't appear. I'm not there. It looks like I was never born. And probably my death will go the same way. But anyway, obviously the editor looked at it, and because I was a ghost, he thought, no, this guy's okay, we can do what we want with the story, because he's not in a position to sue the paper. What they didn't realise is I probably at that time had far more money than Rupert M. And I made it clear with a band of lawyers that I was going to take it to task. And once they found out who I was, they backpedaled immediately and offered me a settlement that was very meaty and very juicy and greatly accepted. But not only is the problem with reporters and the news media of the world, and I wouldn't have a news reporter in my house. I mean, if they came in my doors, I'd just boot them in the arse and throw them out on their face. They're just lying turds. The other person that's creating huge problems are people, particularly on social media, who are speculating about conflicts. There's even Falang speculating on the Asian conflict at the moment. They have no cultural heritage with the country whatsoever, so their depth of understanding is limited. They don't share blood with the country as such. They're probably not citizens, and they're expounding on it's always who fired the first bullet. And no one fucking knows except the person who squeezed the trigger, for fuck's sake. Use some brains. These people are stupid, they're emotionally immature, and their critical thinking is virtually zero. Why don't you get on there and talk about reconciliation of the countries and how it could look if they were both working in harmony? And stop with your lies, bullshit, and the speculation about something you know nothing about it. You couldn't hear it, see it, touch it, eat it, or smell it, so it fucking don't exist. Do you get it? You have no actual knowledge of the real event. None whatsoever. But you're shooting your mouth off for